Welcome, everyone, to episode 18 of the Thundercraps podcast, where we forge through the shitstorm that was WCW Thunder. I am your host, MC Rapmaster Snoop Doggy
Damn it!
And joining me today, a fat, balding, hypocritical heathen, Kyle Hoagland.
What's going on? My God, if you weren't going to use it, and you were going to use it on me, I was going to correct you. Damn it! I will say though, Lee Marshall. That was probably the line of the night for him.
You know, definitely. Lee had, and I gotta admit, Lee had a lot of good. Well, when I say good, I mean good for
memorable.
Memorable. That's a better word choice. Memorable Lee Marshall lines tonight. Of course, it is May 28th, 1998. Kyle, we are 18 episodes into Thunder now. We've already lost one to this podcast, and I'm surprised you and I are still sticking around. But here we are.
I mean, I feel like it's like Kurt Hennig. At some point we lose him. We just don't know how that happened.
It's been crazy. Of course, we're pushing towards the Great American Bash. There's dissension amongst the NWO. We've got the Black and White, the NWO Hollywood. We've got the Wolfpac, the Red and Black, and of course WCW is kind of there.
They're writing the checks, I guess.
Yeah. Apparently at this point, and of course the show is going to open up with a cold, replay from Nitro, and it's decision time on Nitro. Sting is being tossed a NWO Wolfpac Red and Black T-shirt from Lex Luger. So
we must have missed that too.
We must have missed that, and boom, we are live. We're in Nashville, Tennessee. The commentary team's welcoming us in tonight. We know that Goldberg's going to be wrestling. We're in match 2 of a best of 7 between Chris Benoit and Booker T for the number 1 contender for the TV title. We got questions about who's going to be in the Wolfpac. And we then fade into the commentary team, Kyle, and it's back to the peace sign and the okay from Heenan and Lee Marshall. And all they're talking about is Lex Luger, Mr. WCW himself. They are shocked. He is now a member of the Red and Black. And now he's offering Sting a chance to join the Red and Black. Where is Sting going to go? That's the big question. And that's kind of our show. That's how things open.
That's it. Good night, everybody. Well, I mean, it really, in all honesty, unless it's a match that has any kind of meaning, this is all that the commentary is going to talk about. And you know what's really crazy about this is now 20 years plus, right, since this show. And
sure, yes.
Back then I was like all about the Wolfpac. It was such a cool idea. And once again, I think you and I kind of are on the same page. If we really didn't watch too much of the NWO Black and White when it first came out, wrestling in late 96 and 97 wasn't really something we did a whole lot, especially from WCW's point of view. But now that I'm actually looking at it, and we could talk more about it later, like I said, I don't want to take too much time right now. Maybe we'll talk about when it's more relevant to talk about the Wolfpac. I actually kind of felt like the Wolfpac was a stupid idea now. And the only reason why I say that is because why would you create a face NWO faction?
Well, if we want to get into this discussion now, I guess if we're going to do it, we're going to have to do it at some point. Let's just open up in the show with it now before we get into the rest of it. And here's why they do that. First of all, I'm going to say this.
Merchandise.
I was merchandise for sure. But I single-handedly was merchandising the hell out of Wolfpac. I had most of them were Walmart knockoffs, but I had about 20 or 25.
Hey, the one I got for you was at JCPenney.
I had a shitload of Wolfpac T-shirts back in the day. I was a big fan, but I think that was just it. As the NWO came out, they were giant heels. I mean, in '96 when Hogan joins National Hall, they are hated, and then they became cool hated, but still well hated. But at some point along the way, it just became cool, and people were cheering them too much that it was like we need to get some heat back. So what do? You faction them into 2 separate factions. You have the cool Wolfpac. You put all the faces in there. You got Nash, who's over. You give him Savage, who's been feuding with Hogan. He's over. You add Lex in there now. He's a big face. And so now you've got the face faction. Those are the cool NWO people that you can still cheer on if you want. If you don't want to do the WCW route, but you want to cheer on those cool, badass heels, that's your NWO, so they can kind of be face. And then you've got Hollywood filled with all the dick holes that nobody likes. So then you've got your heat back on your heel stable.
And I get that point of view, but I think the point that I find it so – I think you saw that when I first started talking about the cold open is that you've got WCW commentators like popping and marking out for the other NWO faction. And that's where I kind of feel like in the end, it's like they're going crazy, like, oh my God, Lex has joined the Wolfpac. And it's like, it's not like they feel really angry or betrayed that Lex has now left WCW.
They do say that a little bit here now on Thunder. It's almost like they
such a footnote.
But it's like they're trying to. You're right. It's like they're cheering on the Wolfpac, but also they want to be like, we lost another one to the NWO, but it's not Hogan's NWO, so we're not sure where to stand. So I think there's a lot of that. To be fair, where you're right, it's like they don't.
Like
really
if Luger joined the Black and White, they would just be crucifying the man.
Right.
But he joined the Wolfpac, so now it's more like, Luger is talking from the heart, and he's really reaching out to his friend Sting. Like they're making him as more of a likable person than if he was joining up with the likes of Bret Hart, Giant Hogan. It's a much different dynamic, and obviously the commentators react much differently if you're on, the black and white or the red and black. And it's just a weird dynamic to have.
It's a weird dynamic. I'll give you that for sure.
Yep.
Speaking of Bret Hart, he's going to open our show, Kyle. The Spin Doctor, as Tony Schiavone refers to him. He's going to come out here, cut an opening promo. He said he's disappointed in the fans and says his heart goes out to Sting, who knows he's having a tug of war with his conscience, of course, trying to make a decision here.
Do you ever feel like with Bret Hart, because I think he spent most of his career as a face, and I know towards the end of his time with WWE, I felt like he kind of got Hogan'd a little bit, where people just got sick of him, and then it just made sense to make him a heel.
I mean, he had a good heel run when it was WWF, when he was like the Canadian, the anti-American. I mean, I think he had a run where he was hated in the States and loved in Canada. The whole Canadian Stampede. I mean, I think that was a push. So I don't think he was necessarily always a face over there.
Well, what I was trying to get at is that, like, the first thing he does, I know he's supposed to be a heel, he just starts out the show with basically shitting on the crowd.
Bret Hart is very old school in his heel tactics. Yes, I agree with you there. But I kind of like heel Hart at times. I think he can play a good heel.
He can play a believable heel. I can say that.
Yeah, that's fair. Of course, this whole promo, he's basically talking about Sting in this decision and who he's gonna end up with, and says that he has the key to Sting's wrestling future, whatever the fuck that means, right? I
would assume that we're gonna find that out later, but it just seemed like, wow, not a waste of a promo, but it just seemed like he didn't have a whole lot to say. And
it was weird as he came out and said, like, says this whole thing about Sting, and then it's like, I'll talk to Sting later tonight. So it's like he's gonna bookend this entire show, which is weird, but all right, I guess that's the way they set things up.
And it's also funny because he says he feels bad for Sting, like, oh my God, you're being pulled in all these different directions, and I just feel bad for you, but you're literally pulling him in a direction. So
this is true.
It's just kind of a I get it, and maybe that's also a heel way of doing it. Move.
Yeah, absolutely. It's classic heel right there. So now I understand where they're coming from. Our opening bout, of course, the mighty Jim Powers is going to.
We don't know where WCW is coming from with this match.
He's going to be wrestling Barbarian, who of course is joined by Hugh Morris and Jimmy Hart. Looks like Jimmy Hart is forming the new Dungeon of Doom or something,
or Faces of Fear or something of that nature.
I will say there was that lady in the crowd when they announced Jim Powers. She went bananas. So I guess Jim Powers, if nothing else, has one fan out there. So good job, Jim.
Jim Powers is over in Nashville.
He is. Barbarian basically no-selling any of Jim Powers' moves, doing some choking. Powers is trying to clothesline him, can't clothesline him over. But eventually he kind of gains control, and it looks like he might have a shot to win this match. So Jimmy Hart, of course, is going to have to stand up on the apron and cause some interference and distraction, which is going to lead to a boot of fear, which is just a kick to the face. That's going to be your winner. This match was too long for Jim Powers versus Barbarian, and I give it a star and 3/4. It wasn't that great of a match, and also, why is this match happening right now? If it's going to be a squash match, which is what this is supposed to be, it needs to be a lot shorter than it was.
I gave it a star and 3/4 as well. It wasn't a terrible startup, warm up match for the show, but I think at this point we were getting used to for a while the kind of like the luchador matches. I feel like the last maybe 2 weeks, maybe even 3, we really haven't seen much at all.
I was gonna say it's been a little while since we've had some Some good luchador matches.
But, I mean, once again, they're continuing the whole Barbarian looking like a freight train and nothing's phasing him.
Yeah,
they keep on mentioning Ming.
They're setting up for that Ming return, so there must be a Ming versus Barbarian thing going on, and Jimmy Hart must have pissed off Ming before he left, so he's like trying to build up this like alliance to defend him against Ming.
And I know that the whole like Hugh Morris being with them, I know that's not like a huge storyline that I should care about, but I would have loved it if someone would have been like, what's Hugh Morris now doing with Jimmy Hart? Because the last time I saw Hugh Morris, well, I get that, but I don't watch Nitro.
Right. No, I mean, as far as Thunder only goes, yes.
2018 me isn't watching Nitro.
And the only reason I watched Nitro is during that, we had that span of like 3 or 4 weeks where Thunder was off the air and like a shitload of stuff happened, like the Giant joining the NWO. I started watching some Nitro, so I saw this Hugh Morris Barbarian alliance forming, so it's not a total shock to me, but I can understand where you're coming from as somebody who's only watching Thunder.
Yep, and plus Tenay was there, so I was like, oh, maybe Tenay will sort of bring it up because he's usually like the lore master of the show. So I was hoping he'd kind of be like, oh yeah, Hugh Morris, as you guys know from Nitro, blah 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 blah. That way I'd be like, oh, I get it, instead of just me being like, oh, there's Hugh Morris.
I guess it's not that important of a storyline, so they don't care that much about it. After the match, we're going to get our first couple signs of the night, and really some of the only signs I'm going to see tonight. It wasn't a great sign night for Nashville. The first one is going to say Nature Boy, who, because people are still throwing a fucking H in there, and I thought we were over this, but
there's no H for the Nate. Just remember that, everybody. There's no H in the Nate. By the way, Ric Flair now, I think this has now been, 7 weeks in a row? 8 weeks in a row we haven't seen? It might be longer now.
Well, this is like during the whole. I mean, he's not going to be back for a while,
right? But I just find it very interesting that he's been off TV now for a good at least 2.5 to 3 months.
Well, yeah, after that no show, I mean, this is the whole lawsuit. I mean, this is the real bad. You weren't sure Ric Flair was ever going to wrestle or be on WCW TV again.
But I just always wonder about why people want to make signs for a guy we haven't seen in like 3.5 months.
The fans That's all. Love him, man.
Hey, you know what they say? It's 2 things I know about Nashville. Jim Powers is over, and people love themselves from Nature Boy with the H.
You know who else is over in Nashville? It's our second sign of the night. Referee Mark Curtis. As I saw the name Mark Curtis with a big heart drawn around it, and like the lips, the kissing lips, like puckered all over this sign.
That's stalker mode.
Someone is in love with Mark Curtis. And if you're not sure which referee Mark Curtis is, just Google Mark Curtis, WCW referee, and that's all you need to know.
He is basically the most eligible bachelor of the refs.
Right. After this, Shivani's going to be interviewing Chris Jericho. Jericho's going to come out, and he's going to apologize to J.J. Dillon and then ask him to come out again. Of course, trying to get this decision reversed with the whole Cruiserweight Dean Malenko title from Slamboree. And Shivani says, everybody here knows J.J. Dillon's not here. It's no secret J.J. Dillon's not here. I got to admit, I didn't know that J.J. Dillon wasn't there that night, right? So,
I mean, no one told me.
Right. So I don't think everybody knew that, Tony. At that point, Jericho pretty much snaps, throws all these insults at J.J. Dillon. This is when he has Shivani hold the conspiracy victim sign with the arrow pointing to the right this time, pointing towards Jericho. He says that JJ insulted him in front of everyone, and then on Monday, they must be in D.C. on Monday for Nitro, because he said he's going to go to the legal offices and all the, the Senate and Congress and the president, et cetera, to find evidence to reinstate him as the champion. So that's, of course, Jericho playing the conspiracy victim angle right now. After this, we're going to get our second replay of the night, and this is from Nitro, where the Giant's going to call Nash a yellow-bellied coward. Him, the Giant, Vincent, and Bryan Adams are all going to kind of gang up and attack Nash. This is going to lead to Conan and Lex coming out. They clear the ring. This is where the NWO Wolfpac tosses a red and black shirt to Lex. This is where Lex is going to join the NWO. And then they kind of flash forward to a match that Sting and Lex were in. They're taking out the Giant. Sting's going to drop the Scorpion Death Drop on the fake Sting, which, of course, we remember seeing on Thunder last week. And then this is where Sting is offered a shirt. And then you hear danger, high voltage before the clip is over. So that's going to lead us right into our next match. We've got High Voltage wrestling British Bulldog and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. I got to say High Voltage for this match. I mean, kind of being, again, another strange match to just be on this card. So far, we've just had some weird matches. they wrestled with the heel tag team tactics, the get the ref distracted so with the other opponents so they can do some double teams, the classic.
Or the phantom tags and all that stuff like that.
The classic heel tag team work.
And as always, one of the most heelish things ever, some crazy springboard senton bomb by Rage. I was like, holy shit, I didn't even know he could do that.
I tell you what, Rage and Chaos are really athletic for their size. And I don't know why they probably could have gotten over more, but they just I don't know if they ever did.
I think it's what. If they were a tag team 10 years ago, they would have been over. It's too late.
Well, they were actually
I think they're
20 years
particularly
ago. Am I right?
Oh my god.
You mean back in like 88 or something like that?
If they were wrestling at the same time as like the OG Steiners, the Road Warriors,
they definitely would be there. Yeah, I agree. They actually might be too athletic for that, but I think they would definitely be over there. They have the size. They look like Scott Steiner with maybe just less personality.
Right, and well, the funny thing is, I actually was like, I was comparing Chaos to Scott Steiner because they were both just every time they would do a move, they were like, ha, ha, ha. He just kept doing that. I'm like, shut up, Scott.
This is where Lee Marshall's going to drop one of his great one-liners of the night when he says, "It's power versus power, and in this case, British power will always win."
I wanted to write that down, but I was like, that's such a jumbled piece of shit. I'll just let Kaiser talk about it.
Well, that's what I'm here for. The Oklahoma Slam, or the Running Power Slam, is going to get British Bulldog the 3 count here. I give the match 2 stars. It was okay. Like I said, High Voltage was doing some decent heel tag team work. But again, I don't know. Like, these matches so far just haven't interested me. But overall, okay match.
Same here, 2 stars. Match was fine. I don't really care too much who was in it. But there was no real bad spots, and unique offense by Rage and Chaos. Chaos was just being a goof to the crowd, kind of, which made me laugh. And also, we knew that, Davey Boy Smith and Neidhart weren't going to job to them. But I do believe that High Voltage looked better, with the exception of maybe Bulldog. At the end, when he got the hot tag, he definitely looked like the superior person in the ring.
Doesn't Bulldog look slow to you here? I don't know. He just, something about him, he just doesn't look like the Bulldog of, 95 or 93 or anything like that. He just looks like something's different.
Do you ever feel like that once you start getting into WCW, you feel like that just kind of happens where
and that could be it.
You either overwork to try and get yourself out there, like for example, like Jericho and Guerrero and those guys, try to do everything they could. Whereas I think the more seasoned veterans, they've kind of already know they've got they know their place, and so they know they're a low to mid card talent. So it's like, I don't know what they're going to do to get themselves higher up. So at some point, you kind of just go in there, you do your normal, what do you call that? Like your dog and pony show, and just get out.
Yeah, that could actually be quite accurate. After this match, we're gonna hear the howl of the Wolfpac theme.
Does that have an H in it?
I don't think so.
We'll have to look up the phonetic sound for a wolf cry. We'll confirm it on Twitter.
And this is I'm like, oh fuck, I love the Wolfpac theme. I'm glad it's starting to play it. And from what it sounds like, based on what the commentary team was saying, it sounds like this is Thunder's where they debuted it, so it wasn't even on Nitro the previous Monday.
What a historic Thunder!
Historic. So this has already turned Thunder into a whole nother level from where it's already been for the night. Tony Schiavone, of course, refers to this as a little rap song, which just made me laugh. And then obviously that's when Lee Marshall drops the MC MC Rap Master Snoop Doggy Luger, which still cracks me up, because especially coming from Lee Marshall.
Especially, like I said, if it was Brain, I would have laughed just because I'm like, oh, fucking Bobby. But because it was like Lee Marshall, it's like everyone's like weird uncle.
Yes, exactly. So the Wolfpac comes out. Macho Man's going to get on the mic and basically says Lex has something to say. So they're going to give the mic to Lex. And Lex is going to cut a promo here and says what's happening, between the NWO and WCW and the Wolfpac and Hollywood. It's bigger than anyone who's in this ring. He basically starts listing all the accolades of and accomplishments and championships of everybody in the ring. Says he didn't turn his back to WCW and starts throwing all kinds of cliches about, when your name is called, you play in the game, and this ship is going to sail, and everything under the sun. And
which means you loved it because you love yourself some cliches.
Absolutely, got to enjoy a good cliche. And then basically talks about Monday and says, we all felt the energy Sting. I know you felt it, I felt it, the crowd felt it, the Wolfpac felt it, etc. about Sting joining the Wolfpac. And says, he's asking him to take the step and join them. Of course, Lex playing to the friendship that him and Sting have. And says, don't listen to Brett. I got to say, Kyle, we give Lex Luger a lot of shit for a lot of things, especially his promo work. I thought this was one of his better, more passionate promos than we've heard of his.
Well, it also sounds like this is something that probably more tugs to something that he could be more real about, where instead he'll just be like talking about who he's wrestling. So yeah, I think the subject matter was going to play into him. I just thought the whole Wolfpac thing was a little weird. The Luger thing brought it back, but it was just kind of weird. First of all, Kurt Hennig's not there, not explained. Conan was basically just trying to hype the crowd up. Kevin Nash, calls out Nashville and then says, hey, Macho Man, you told me you got something to say. And then he hands the mic over to Macho, and Macho's like, yeah, I think Luger's got something to say.
It was like they all needed to say something to get their paycheck that day, but really it was just like Luger's got to cut a promo.
Why couldn't Conan do a quick olale, just something, give him something to get the crowd going? But that dude was just a hype man. Yeah,
you're right. He probably should have said something like, I think Nash has got something to say, and just pass it along.
Or he could be like, hey, Kurt, you got something? Oh, never mind.
After this promo, we're going to get Glacier wrestling Van Hammer. Not much to highlight in the match itself. Van Hammer's actually going to taunt Glacier for a minute with his little martial arts poses and stuff, which I thought was kind of funny. But Glacier's going to lock on the rings of Saturn. Of course, kind of playing on that whole storyline with him and Saturn and how Saturn's using the cryonic kick. This is going to bring Saturn out. Saturn's going to attack Glacier. That's going to end the match in a DQ. As for a quick match rating before we get to the aftermatch stuff, Kyle, I give it a 1.75 stars. I really didn't care about this match. Again, it was weird. But I have a lot to say about what happened after the match, so that's all I want to say. The match itself was a 1.75 stars for me.
Same, 1.75 stars. Match was actually kind of one-sided for the most part, especially within the offensive category, because Van Hammer actually didn't have a bad moveset. I think what he was doing was kind of exciting. He's a huge guy. I keep forgetting just how tall he is. He just seems like he's probably six. Yeah, at least 6'7".
Yeah, he's got a good size, a decent look, not a bad ring presence and wrestling ability behind him. He was just stuck with some shit gimmicks through all of his time in WCW.
Yeah, and then speaking of shit gimmicks, Glacier really only got the upper hand at the very end of the match, but at that point, he puts on the rings of Saturn, which apparently that summons Saturn, and that's how that goes. But there was actually this particular match I had a ton of notes for some stupid reason, and I think the only thing that I know we'll talk about it, but one of the very interesting bits of nuggets of knowledge we learned was that Raven fired the entire flock, I guess on Nitro.
Yeah, so we'll just get into the post-match. So after Saturn attacks Glacier, Raven's going to come into the ring. He's going to give an even flow to Van Hammer. Saturn's going to drop the Death Valley driver to Glacier. This is going to lead to Raven getting on the mic and telling Saturn that he saved him from Van Hammer. And then he said he fired the flock, which must have happened on Nitro, to your point. And then Saturn's basically says, he doesn't care. And then Raven says, it's the thought that counts. And apparently that's good enough for Saturn. Saturn's like, well, I guess you're right. It is. Well,
it's like last week where Saturn said something to Raven. He's like, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, they shake hands and walk away. It was so you get that again where it was just very quick and okay, yeah, that works. And then Raven basically calls Saturn his enforcer and starts pointing to random fans and people in the crowd and stuff.
Dude, he fucked up that one guy.
Dude, yeah, he did when he pulled him over the guardrail and just
I'm assuming he's got to be a stunt.
Oh, sure.
Some guy stunt man.
Or an indie wrestler or something. Somebody, right?
Someone that could take a bump.
Right. Yeah, he bumped the hell out of him though.
Yeah, he did.
Of course, none of those are Mortis. Mortis comes up in a construction outfit, attacks Raven from behind. So Raven's still getting laid out by Mortis. But what I wanted to say is, here's what we've got going on. You've got Glacier and Saturn using each other's moves, so there's a feud there. You've got Van Hammer, who's still upset at Saturn and the flock and everything that's going on there. Meanwhile, you've got Raven and Saturn, who, like, Saturn's pissed off at Raven and says he's not a slave to him, and Raven's apologizing, but things are still good, but there's still something going on there. You've got Raven and Mortis still got their feud going on, and then Saturn is kind of an enforcer for Raven. There's like 12 storylines taking place right here, and I have no idea. Like, ultimately, there's got to be payoffs for this, right? Like, at the pay-per-view, things like that. Like, I don't know where any of this is going. Is Saturn going to wrestle Glacier at Great American Bash? Is that even going to be a story that they care about? I just don't know what they're doing here. They have a shitload of stuff going on, and they're just like, it's like they're, throwing a bunch of shit against the wall and seeing what sticks, right?
All I know is it better not conclude at Great American Bash with Saturn versus Glacier. That is a Saturday night main event, and I'll be fine with that. Let it be over with. I don't think anybody really sees Glacier getting over Saturn, and let that be a Nitro thing or a Saturday Night or a Thunder. I can see more of, like, maybe once Mortis really kind of like reveals himself and gets back into the company, let that be a Great American Bash thing. And the weird thing too is you're also forgetting the fact that DDP and Raven still kind of have a thing too.
I'm going to assume, which DDP's been off TV for a bit now. I feel like I haven't seen or heard from him since. Right,
but I only say that because the commentary actually still mentions something about that Raven needs Saturn to be with him, because not only does he have to worry about this about Mortis, but DDP also at any moment want to bang him. So yeah, make sure you got to enforce it.
And that's another thing I forgot to mention is Raven still has his armed guards with him, his riot squad. But as far as DDP, like, I could see DDP who actually beat Raven in that Bowery Cell match. Like, you could almost say that was a way to end their feud, as DDP got his revenge. But yeah, to your point, like, there's still a possibility he could come back and fuck Raven up. So there's just a lot going on. Raven, for never being the top guy in WCW, he sure has a lot of storylines built around him, right?
Well, he's also appears to be like the second most powerful person in the company with basically all the demands he makes.
Right. But after all this goes on, we've got our Booker T versus Chris Benoit match. Of course, this is the best of 7. This is their second match of their best of 7. Benoit leads. He won the first match. The winner of this best of 7 is going to get a title match for the television title, Kyle.
Doesn't that seem like a shit ton of work?
A lot of work for that TV title, but both these men want that prestigious TV title, which Prince Iaukea, little fun fact for you, Prince Iaukea was once a television champion, Kyle, so don't know if you knew that or not.
The more you know.
The third match of this great best of 7 is actually going to be on Saturday night. So,
and damn it, that makes me want to watch Saturday night, to be honest.
Just to see how it happens, yeah.
Right.
I got to admit, Kyle, I didn't write a ton of notes for this match. It was a long match, but it was a great match. And then it started heating up at the end. Benoit's going to hit a flying headbutt, but it's going to take him a while to cover. He's only going to get the 2 count. Same Booker T's going to hit his axe kick, 2 count. There was only one spot I think was slightly sloppy, was when Chris Benoit is going to be whipped against the ropes, and he's going to hold on to the ropes when Booker T's going to do his flying scissor kick.
But Harlem side kick, I believe.
Yeah, but he kind of delays when he throws it, so Benoit was already holding the ropes. It just felt the timing was slightly off, but other than that, I thought
I let that go. I let that go because I think he was supposed to duck or get underneath it so he'd get him hung up on the rope like it did.
Yeah,
but
I understand.
It's such a the problem is
awkward.
It's awkward because it looked choreographed, and
right.
It's one of those things where you can either accidentally kick him or you can totally mess up the spot. So it just looks unnatural because it's unnatural. It's a choreographed kick. So yeah, that's one of those things where if there's going to be one botch and that's it, I'm fine with it.
That's fair. No, I agree. It didn't take away from the match at all. You're going to get the sidewalk slam, spin-a-rooney action. Then they're going to start reversing. It's almost a German suplex, almost this, and finally the axe kick followed by the missile drop kick by Booker T. I gave this 3.5 stars. I loved this match, and it may be the best match we've seen on Thunder in our 18 episodes.
I'd have to go back and see what other matches were. I could have sworn that we gave that tag match between I think it was Jericho, and Eddie. I think we gave that around that 3.5 star as well.
It was close. Yeah, it was right there.
I gave it 3. I understand where the 3.5 comes from. I have a hard time putting too much higher on anything that's not a tag, an actual title match. I guess this would be considered a grudge match
this is a grudge match, best of 7 for the television title #1 contendership, Kyle. It doesn't get much more prestigious than that for WCW Thunder.
That's true. For Thunder, this is up there, but I think that if it was perfect, I would have given it 3 3/4. I didn't think this was a perfect match.
He's in the Wolfpac, so you don't need to worry about him.
God damn it, dude. But anyways, I thought it was well done by both guys. The story was told well. I can't rate high the second match in a best of 7. I'm sorry, I can't. I know there's more going on. This is not a payoff. This is the only thing I think that this is that I like about the story is that I think, first of all, the booth was very invested into it. There was no Luger talk. There was no Sting talk. There was no Macho talk.
So much when they actually care about the match they're calling.
Absolutely. And the other thing I found very interesting was if Benoit took a 2-0 lead, I can see that this just in general would be less interesting for the third match. But because it's tied up, I'm like, shit, now I want to watch Saturday night. So because it would be a hard mountain to climb to go, come up from 2-0 against Benoit. So I was glad that Booker T tied it up.
Absolutely. After the match, Shivani's going to have an interview with Chris Benoit. And Chris Benoit basically tells Booker T that, he has undeniable talent. And by the end of this best of 7, we're going to find out what you're made of and why they call me the Crippler.
Does that mean he's going to kill him? That sounds very Sting-like to start giving threats like that. But yeah, I digress.
After this, Kyle, Fit Finlay, of course, the television champion, is going to be defending his title against Brad Armstrong,
the #1 contender.
So meanwhile, while Chris Benoit and Booker T are fighting over who is the #1 contender for the television title, they're going to have 7 matches. The guy who can beat the other guy 4 times is going to have the right to wrestle Fit Finlay at Great American Bash for that television title. Meanwhile, Brad fucking Armstrong is just going to get a title match tonight on Thunder. Doesn't that seem...
Dude, it's all about the payout. I'm just convinced that the reason why they do this is because we're supposed to be convinced it's all about the payout. Brad Armstrong's not getting much on Thunder.
Right.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of, man.
But if you're like a guy, you're like, hey, you know what? You could be television champion. You got to beat this guy 4 times, or you can just wrestle him tonight on Thunder. But guess what? If Brad Armstrong wins tonight, then he's just going to be the guy defending it against the assholes that are wrestling 7 times for that chance.
Yeah, and once again, we can go back and you might say that it's more important to do it on pay-per-view, but, I mean, ask Kevin Nash. The only time he ever won a world title in WWE, he did it in a dark match house show against Bob Backlund, and he ain't going to tell you that was anything short of, one of the greatest achievements of his career.
This is just one of those moments. This is, I defended him sometimes because Fit Finlay won the title on one of those, there's no way he's going to win it because Booker T is going to be defending it against Chris Benoit at the pay-per-view. That was a surprise. This makes no fucking sense when you got the best of 7, and then you're supposed to lead me to believe that Brad Armstrong is the #1 contender right now. So it's just,
all I thought about too was whoever wins this best of 7, I really want Fit Finlay to just beat them.
Well, that would be nice
really
too.
do.
And they say Fit is on a Goldberg-like streak right now, which I feel like is a little
minus 82 victories, but okay.
Right. Kyle, you made a note though that Lee Marshall talks about every time Fit Finlay wrestles that he wouldn't want to meet him in a bar.
Yeah, it's almost like a drinking game. I think it's every time that we've seen him now wrestling, he always makes the mention of you don't want to meet this guy in a back alley or a bar because he likes to brawl. It's like, all right.
We get it, Lee. The fans are not going to get this match or find it entertaining at all. There's actually some boring chants, which doesn't help that Fit's going to put him into a sleeper during the boring chants. He is going to win with a tombstone pile driver. I gave this match 2 stars. It was okay. But for me, the biggest thing is why is Brad Armstrong wrestling for the title? Just have Fit Finlay wrestle in a non-title match because 2 people are wrestling for the rights in a best of 7 to wrestle for that title. Makes no sense to me. 2 stars.
Right. Make it where Fit Finlay could lose and it doesn't really matter other than maybe the psychology of it. But I agree. I was a little nicer about this. I gave it 2.5 stars. I actually thought it was a good match. I thought there was no wasted motion. I'm going to give Brad Armstrong credit where it's due. I don't think he really screwed up in any spots. He looked good. But really, Fit Finlay continues to look like a legitimate TV champion, like a Prince Iaukea. And it's just a shame that they had to follow Benoit and Booker T. I think the crowd was out of it. And
absolutely. You need kind of that die down match after a big. This is where a Divas match needs to go in, or like a what's that other one, the meat hook match, or if you open the show with Fit Finlay defending against I even forgot Brad Armstrong, and then have Barbarian.
How dare you forget about the Armstrongs?
Totally blacked. And then have Barbarian versus Jim Powers right here, right? A match that nobody really cares about. It can be
I think the best thing to do after a match that you think is really going to go over, and these guys are really going to put on a great show, you put on either you do an interview, a promo, or a gimmicky match. Like, once again, this is what WWE always did, and I think it's one that they did a very good job of. You have a very good match. Everyone's got to come down from it. Throw in a Divas match, like a fucking stripper on a pole, whatever the fuck you want to do, just to kind of get people interested in something that's not wrestling for a moment.
That's fair. After this match, we're going to get a little bit of what you're kind of talking about there. The commentary team's going to be discussing that tag team match from Hell, which apparently is what we're calling this now, which is the Piper Savage versus Hart and Hogan match at Great American Bash. They're discussing whose side Piper's on, so we get that typical, we don't know who's going to be with who. This is where we're going to get our third replay of the night, where they're going to show Macho Man asking Piper if he's going to be on his side during this match from Hell. Hart's going to come out and tell Piper to come clean, and says that, we all know Macho's very gullible. And then Hart's going to make the comment that basically Piper told him, hey, don't worry, when I reverse that decision on Nitro from your match the night before, no one's going to care. Which made me laugh because it's
kind of true.
Yeah, nobody gives a fuck. Like, if Piper's like, I didn't know he punched me in the back of the head the night before, I'm reversing that decision. The fact of the matter is, Hart won that match. Nobody cares that you reverse the decision, right? Nobody. So I laughed that it was like actually true that
yeah, if you go back in the annals of wrestling, no one's going to remember that he reversed a decision on Nitro.
Correct. Savage says he's going to want to fight Piper, which basically they're like, hey, let's get through our match, and then I'll be happy to fight you. And then, of course, Savage is going to believe basically everything Hart's saying, and Piper's like denying that, he's in cahoots with Hart and all that. So that's sort of your thing. The commentary team's going to discuss that a little bit more. And then we're going to follow it up with Barry Dorso against Saturn. For a second, I thought this was going to be the Goldberg match when I saw Barry coming out. We're going to find out that Barry's got a finisher called the Barely Legal, which Lee Marshall says, and it is. At one point, he ends up locking it on. It's sort of like a chicken wing arm.
It's like a wrist lock. Which, by the way, this has been discussed before, because I think we all remember, or maybe I'm the only one that really gave this match a higher rating. But when Barry Darsow fought Ray Traylor.
You really like that match, yeah.
I love that match, and which is crazy to think that Big Boss Man versus Repo Man in 1998 was going to make me mark out a little bit. But he does put him in that move, and you can I think they sell it as in like if you lock him in that move, it's like you got 3 seconds before you're going to want to tap out or your wrist breaks. So for that case, I guess I can say not a bad. It's a cool idea for a submission hold, but at the same time, it's professional wrestling. You want to have a submission hold that someone has to fight, have the strength to break out of, not something that's like, holy shit, I'm going to break my wrist in 2 seconds.
And in 98, the submission moves are like the crippler crossface. I mean, they're the sharpshooter, the scorpion.
They're showmanship to the move,
right? Otherwise, your finisher needs to be something fast or hard or cool to do. This is none of those. But he is going to put it on. Saturn's going to immediately run to the ropes. Dorso's going to, not break the count until 4. This is where the ref's going to get in his face, basically say, tell him he's 1 second from being DQ'd. He's while he gets in the ref's face, he's going to turn around. This is where he's going to get the side kick followed by the driver. I gave the match 2 stars. It was fine. It wasn't terrible by any means, but it was just okay.
I gave it 2 1/4. Yeah, I said not a bad match, and I kind of just go back to this is I think the 3rd time we've seen Darsow in a match, Repo Man, and I think all of his matches have not been bad enhancement matches. I think maybe Goldberg he didn't look fantastic against, but I don't think he was. I don't think he's the right kind of person for a Goldberg match
either. Yeah,
right.
after this, we're going to get our third sign of the night, and the last sign of the night for that matter. It just says, what are you looking at? So I was looking at your sign, Nashville. Speaking of Goldberg, though, Kyle, he's in the next match defending his United States title against the number one contender, Barry Horowitz.
Hey, welcome, Barry Horowitz to WCW, I guess. I don't remember him being
Has he not wrestled on Thunder?
No, I don't think he has at all.
So I wasn't surprised to see him. I must have saw him on an episode of Nitro recently, but I was shocked when I saw him because I didn't remember him on Nitro either, or in WCW at this point. This is where we're going to see our fourth sign of the night. After Thunder, No Holds Barred, starring Hollywood Hogan, which just made me laugh. Barry's going to get a quick attack. This match is going to be a spear or jackhammer before it's over before it even started, Kyle. I gave it a 1.5 stars. This was even junky as far as a Goldberg match is concerned, as far as I'm concerned.
Concerned. I gave it a 1.75 stars. And I don't know why. I just thought Barry sold the spear amazingly. I think Barry did a good job of making, and here's the thing too.
I'll give you that. And you know what was weird, and I didn't know whether he was selling the spear or if after he got speared, Goldberg kind of does that. He jumps up and like hulks out for a minute, where he kind of just stomps the ground and almost like a Vegeta or like something where he's just like, I don't even know how to describe it, where he's like fist pumping back and just where he just jumps up and goes, ah. I swear he stepped on Barry Horowitz when he did that, and Barry jumped. So I don't know if Barry was overselling the spear or if Goldberg literally, when he jumped up, he just stepped on his hand or arm or leg or something like that.
Yeah, I couldn't tell. But I think the thing that people keep forgetting about is I was actually okay with the fact that there was no offense put on Goldberg because – first of all, that's such wasted motion even in a match anyways. Like even if, let's say Barry Horowitz comes in there, does a couple of clubs in the back and, maybe like a couple of kicks and gets him in the corner for a moment. Does anybody actually really care about that? Is anyone really going to look at this and go, man, Barry Horowitz really gave it his
They want to see Goldberg spear and jackhammer the fuck out of somebody and smash him in a minute. Yes, that's all they care about.
Right. That's why actually I gave it high, like a 1/4 star higher than I think our normal rating, because I think this match literally gave what the crowd wanted, was just Goldberg being fed somebody, and so I was okay with it.
Just think about that. Chris Benoit and Booker T wrestled for 10 minutes or so in their second of 7 matches to declare themselves, to the winner of that, to declare themselves the right to wrestle Fit Finlay for the television title.
Or whoever's the champion.
Meanwhile, Barry Horowitz is coming out getting a United States title match against Goldberg. Something's not fair.
Something's hinky about this, but once again, I don't think Barry Horowitz is going to be seen at the Great American Bash challenging Goldberg.
This is true. After the match, we're going to get a promo here with the NWO. Out comes Bret Hart, Vincent, and Eric Bischoff, so they really don't have a lot of the main players tonight.
Don't forget the Giant.
Oh, the Giant. I'm sorry. You're right. The Giant does come out with them, too. It starts out, the mic's not working for Bret Hart. But then he's going to talk about the similarities between himself and Sting and their respect for each other. They have the same finisher or submission, et cetera, et cetera. He mentions Macho Man Randy Savage and then spits afterwards, which just made me laugh. Basically says that everyone has double-crossed Sting. This is going to lead the Wolfpac come out, and they say that Sting belongs to us, so we got a little custody battle of Sting here between the Wolfpac and Team Hollywood. Hart's going to call them all scum in one way or another. And then they're all going to say, let's do this, and they all start brawling. Tony Schiavone's going to say, let us know that we're out of time. And it was at that moment, that fucking moment, that I realized, holy shit, our main event match was Goldberg versus Barry Horowitz with a clean finish in seconds. Does this count? Is the streak over at 18 episodes, Kyle? Can we say that finally our main event had a clean finish? Technically, it wasn't the way to end the show. It was the last match. Is the last match the main event? Is Barry Horowitz versus Goldberg going to be considered our main event clean finish for Thunder? What do you think?
First of all, we should probably take this to the Twitterverse and let people decide whether or not they think that this was a legit. I think the rules dictate in Thunder that it's whatever happens after the final pyro. They shot that fucking main event pyro, and out comes Bret Hart and the rest of the NWO. To me, that's the main event spot of the show. To me, Barry Horowitz and Goldberg were just a match. It was the last match.
And they never pushed it. Normally when they push it, like, oh, tonight, Sting versus Lex Luger,
Exactly.
or whatever it is. They never pushed any of that. They mentioned Goldberg's wrestling later, but they never said, Goldberg versus Barry Horowitz for the United States title in our main event bout.
Right, and that's why I'm saying this final match was not promoted, pushed, or even revealed until we saw Barry Horowitz come out.
I thought, like I said, when I saw Barry Dorso, I thought for sure that was the Goldberg match. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
We want it to be over. Don't get me wrong, everybody. We want this streak to be done,
but
we also don't want to sell you guys short.
Yes, I feel like this cannot be. It's the last match. In a technicality, it was your main event bout, but it was not the main event of the show.
I honest to God, I agree. If they shot all those damn pyro and then Barry Horowitz came out, then I would just say, wow, what a shitty main event. But it's at least the main event.
And I'm going to say the streak lives on, but we've only had 17 main events without a clean finish.
Correct. Or one where the match didn't even happen.
Right. Well, now 2 technically, where if we want to go that route, where we had 16 DQ finishes, 2 main event matches that did not happen,
or at least main event something or others that did not result in a match that ended in a pinfall or submission.
Now,
something of that nature.
We say some sort of clusterfuck like that. That said, when we release this show, we're going to release a poll. We're going to poll the audience and see if they feel that Goldberg versus Barry Horowitz, which did not close the show out, but was in fact the final match, is that in fact the first clean main event finish on Thunder, or do you fans agree with us that was not the main event and the streak lives on till next week, and who knows from there on. So we will post that after this, when this show drops, so you guys will get a chance to vote on it, and then of course we'll talk about it sometime down the line. That said, Kyle, that's our Thunder. What'd you think about this one?
So I was really scared about this show for a bit after we had, I think, Fit Finlay versus Brad Armstrong. So that was match number 3 of matches I couldn't possibly give any more shits about. But the NWO progression was very good. It was very interesting to have Bret had the discussion on Thunder. We always talk about how Bret Hart.
It was nice to at least see Bret on Thunder.
That's true. Like, it's just weird because on Nitro, Bret Hart was like basically more or less talking more about the Piper Macho Man storyline, because obviously he's main eventing, or I would assume that's the main event at Great American Bash with Hogan.
I assume so. You got Hogan, Hart, Piper, and Savage.
Savage. I would assume so. And so with that said, which is also interesting knowing that Hogan's not defending the title on the show either. But the whole Sting NWO thing, I feel like on Nitro, Hogan has been more on that storyline. So it was just very strange to have Hogan not at Thunder, and that basically Bret Hart was kind of given the reins as like almost like the diplomat or the representative of the NWO, especially with Bischoff being there. It was really weird to see Bischoff without Hogan.
Yeah, I don't know why. Same thing.
I feel like they're always a package
awkward
deal.
Yeah.
But like I said, after 3 borderline dud matches, we finally get into the real meat and potatoes of the night. Booker T and Benoit had a match, that nobody will really remember except for you and me probably. But once again, it also makes me excited to know that these guys are going to have at least 2 more matches or 3 more matches. Obviously, I think it goes longer. I think it actually goes to all the way to 7 in this case, if I remember correctly. Once again, that's not a spoiler. That's just me trying to remember. I love that Goldberg just murdered Barry Horowitz. I think that's just sums up Barry Horowitz's career for the most part. I just felt like the conclusion of the show, though, with the Wolfpac and the White and Black, it felt a little lukewarm. It just felt like both of them just kind of.
It was a weaker ending. I'll give you.
They talked sarcastically to each other. They almost just seemed kind of like just catty with each other. And then they're like, well, I guess if nothing's going to come of this, I guess we'll just start fighting. All right. And then they do. And then we're out of time. So it didn't have a crescendo that I know this is going to sound weird, the crescendo that I'm used to seeing in a Thunder main event. But there wasn't. I think that that was not the highlight that I'm looking forward to Nitro for not those reasons. And they keep on saying that Sting was there and Sting never showed up to the show, but they said he was in the back, which is another thing that kind of got me upset.
Yeah, I was expecting a Sting appearance as well, and was a little let down that he didn't show up, at least at the end, to kind of drop down in between them, and it's, where's he going to end? We're out of time, but none of that.
That would have, dude, we should have been writing this shit.
Tell me about it.
If he just came down from the sky, from the rafters, and just was in the middle of the ring. Or even if he
just was in the rafters or something, like even just like they pan up to him and it's like, where's he gonna end up? And
I think it would have been cooler. It would have been cooler if all of them were in the ring fighting each other, and then Sting comes down, almost breaks up the fight. He gets in the middle. Everyone kind of goes to their corners, and then he just kind of looks at both of them. And then just leaves. Like, oh my God, we still don't know what his decision is, and everyone's kind of confused and bewildered about, like, oh wait, I thought this was a done deal. I thought we were going to find out tonight who's going to join. We're fucking out of time. We're out. But instead, it's just fucking 8 grown men just kind of punching each other in the walkway, and then we're done.
And that's it. So, you've kind of talked me back into it. Talked me out of the fact that I thought this was a better than average Thunder because of some of the storyline going on. Obviously, I thought we may have seen the best match on all in 18 episodes of Thunder. We have a debatable end of the streak with the non-DQ finish to quote unquote the main event. But you're right. I think it ended flat. There was a lot of flat matches. I'm going to say this was an okay, maybe a subpar one after our discussion. So.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to Debbie Down you out of this show.
No. I think I was too high. I think I was riding too high on the Barry Horowitz Goldberg match, and by that, of course, I mean Booker T versus Chris Benoit. But that's our show this week. So, if you haven't subscribed to us yet on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, etc., what are you waiting for? Go subscribe. Leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Give us a follow on Twitter at ThunderCraps. Of course, we're at thundercraps.com for all of our past episodes, social media accounts, all that fun stuff. And look for that Twitter poll. Let us know what you thought about that main event, because maybe we're on our own island here, Kyle. We'll have to wait and see what the fans say. And then, of course, go check out the June 4th, 1998 edition of Thunder. Maybe we'll see if we have some answers on where Sting's allegiance is going to lie. And, we'll find out where we're at with the best of 7. Maybe we'll be on that 5th match or so. For Kyle Hoagland, I am Josh Kaiser, and we will see you next time on the Thundercrafts podcast.
We are desperately out of time.